This summer, the United States hosts the biggest World Cup in history. 48 teams, 11 American cities, stadiums that hold the population of a small town. It is the most expensive, most watched sporting event this country has ever staged. And here's the thing almost nobody says out loud. In 96 years of trying, the United States has never won a World Cup. Not once. Their best finish ever is a third place from 1930 that almost no American alive has heard of. So this summer, a country of 330 million people with the richest sports economy on earth walks into its own party asking one quiet, terrifying question. Is this finally the year? Or do we lose, again, this time at home? To answer that, you have to go back, past the highlights everybody knows, to a forgotten miracle, a man this country tried to erase, and the quiet, structural reason a superpower spent decades losing. By the end, you'll have the honest case for hope in 2026, and the honest case against it, because the real story is far more interesting than the highlight reel, and it starts with a ghost. 1930, Uruguay, the very first World Cup. 13 teams show up, and one of them is the United States. A squad of part-timers, a few of them former British pros, and they're good. They win their group, they reach the semi-final, and then Argentina takes them apart, 6-1. No third-place game was even played that year, but decades later, FIFA goes back and credits the United States with third place, at a World Cup. To this day, it's the best finish of any team from outside South America or Europe. They go again in 1934 and get knocked straight out, hammered 7-1 by Italy in the first round. And then comes the moment that should have changed everything. 1950, Belo Horizonte, Brazil. The United States against England, the self-described kings of football. The Americans had lost their previous 7 games by a combined 45 goals to 2. They were a joke. And then a Haitian-born forward named Joe Gaetjens throws himself at a cross and deflects it past the English keeper. 1-0, it holds. The United States beats England at a World Cup. Back home, newspapers assume the scoreline is a typo. It is still called the greatest upset the tournament has ever seen. And the hero of it all, Joe Gaetjens, would meet a far darker fate. Years later, back in his native Haiti, he vanished under the Duvalier dictatorship, arrested, never seen again. America's greatest goal, scored by a man history tried to erase. And here's the cruel part. After that miracle, the United States didn't build on it. They disappeared too. For 40 years, or best 40, the United States did not appear at a World Cup. 1954, gone. 1958, gone. Every tournament through 1986, gone. A nation that had finished third and beaten England simply vanished from the biggest stage in sport for 9 straight tournaments. And the question is why? Why does the richest, most athletic country on the planet spend 40 years as a soccer nobody? The answer isn't a lack of talent. It's the way the entire system was built. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. In 1990, the United States finally came back, qualifying for a World Cup after 40 years in the dark. And in 1994, they did something far bigger. They hosted it, the entire tournament on American soil. Sold-out stadiums and the highest average attendance in World Cup history, a record that would stand for more than 30 years. This, everyone agreed, was the moment. Soccer was finally going to conquer America. Out of that World Cup, a brand new league was born, Major League Soccer. And yet, here is the pattern again. Hosting did not produce a winner. The US went out in the round of 16. The new league nearly went bankrupt within a few years, and the national team still hadn't beaten anyone who truly mattered. Because a home World Cup, it turns out, cannot fix what is broken underneath. And something was deeply broken underneath. Remember that, because it's the whole reason 2026 might be different. Start with the obvious. For most of the 20th century, soccer in America was buried. The best athletes, the fastest, the tallest, the most competitive, got funneled into football, basketball, baseball. Soccer got the leftovers and a national shrug. But the deeper problem is one Americans still don't like to talk about. It's called pay to play. In most of the world, if you're a gifted kid, an academy finds you and develops you for free because your talent is the price of admission. In the United States, youth soccer runs on money. Club fees, travel teams, tournaments, hotels, thousands of dollars a year, every year, which means the system doesn't select the best players. It selects the players whose families can afford it. A generational talent born in the wrong zip code just never gets found. On top of that, America sent its best young players to college. Older, slower development, short seasons, while the rest of the world turned children into professionals. No strong domestic league, a thin coaching base, and a constant, self-fulfilling whisper. Soccer will never really make it here. For decades, that whisper was right. But never won does not mean never close. Because a few times, the United States got agonizingly, heartbreakingly close. 2002, Korea and Japan. A young American team nobody respected reaches the knockouts and runs into Mexico, their tormentors, their great rivals. And the US wins. 2-0, Dos Acero. A scoreline so iconic it became a chant. They march into the quarter-final against Germany, one of the giants, and they are the better team. They batter the German goal, and then, on the line, a German defender named Torsten Frings stops a goal-bound shot with his arm. No whistle, no penalty. Germany win 1-0 and go to the final. The United States is one uncalled handball away from the semi-finals of a World Cup. 7 years later, it somehow gets better. 2009, the Confederations Cup. In the semi-final, the United States faces Spain, the #1 team on earth, European champions, 35 games unbeaten, one of the greatest sides ever assembled, and the US beats them 2-0. Then, in the final, they go 2-0 up on Brazil. For 45 minutes, the United States is winning a global final against Brazil. Brazil drag it back to 3-2 and lift the trophy. But the message was sent. On the right night, this team could beat anyone. Good, just never quite great. And there's one more moment every American of a certain age remembers exactly where they were for. 2010, South Africa. The United States needs a goal to win its group and survive. And deep into stoppage time, it simply isn't coming. Then Landon Donovan, the face of an entire generation, pounces on a loose rebound and smashes it home in the 91st minute. The roar, the pile-on, grown men crying at their office desks. It became the single most replayed moment in American soccer history. Proof that this country could feel about this game exactly the way the rest of the world does. And then, they lost in the very next round. The pattern, one more time. A flash of magic, and then the ceiling. And then there's the night the US lost. But a goalkeeper became a legend. 2014, Brazil. Round of 16, against Belgium and their wave of stars. For 120 minutes, the United States is under siege, and Tim Howard refuses to break. Save after save after save. 16 of them, a World Cup record that still stands. They called him the Secretary of Defense. The US lost anyway, 2-1 in extra time. But that's the pattern, isn't it? Heroic, heartbreaking, close, never quite enough. And if close, but not enough, was the worst it ever got, this would be a hopeful little story. It wasn't, because the worst was still coming, and it would arrive on a warm October night on a tiny Caribbean island. October 10th, 2017. This is the night that still haunts American soccer. The United States needs a single point, just a draw, away to Trinidad and Tobago, a tiny island nation, already eliminated, nothing to play for, that hadn't won a competitive game in months. Draw, and the US is going to the 2018 World Cup. They lose, 2-1. An own goal, a defensive nightmare, and a long-range strike the keeper never sees. And because Panama and Honduras both win on the very same night, the United States doesn't slip into a playoff. They crash all the way out. For the first time since 1986, 32 years, the United States would not be at the World Cup at all. Not as an underdog, not in the group stage, just gone. A program that thought it had finally arrived, discovered it could still collapse, completely, in 90 minutes. If you have followed this team your whole life, you know that exact feeling, the gut punch of being let down by your own. The players slumped on that pitch in Trinidad. Some of them were the future of American soccer, and for the first time, they understood what losing actually cost, and what it would take to never feel this again. That was rock bottom. And rock bottom, it turns out, is exactly where this story finally starts to turn. Because the wreckage produced something nobody expected. A team that actually plays, right now, in Europe's best leagues every single week. Start with the captain, Christian Pulisic, the talisman, starring and scoring for AC Milan in Italy. Beside him, a midfield that would walk into most national teams. Weston McKennie, who was loaned out of Juventus and fought his way back into their starting 11. Tyler Adams, the anchor at Bournemouth, who captained this entire team at the last World Cup at just 23. Folarin Balogun, who could have played for England and chose the United States, now leading the line for Monaco in France. Add Ricardo Pepi at PSV, Tim Weah, son of a Ballon d'Or winner, at Marseille, and Anthony Robinson, one of the most dangerous left-backs in the Premier League, at Fulham. Behind them, Gio Reyna at Mönchengladbach, Serginho Dest at PSV, Chris Richards at Crystal Palace, Malik Tillman at Leverkusen. This is not one star carried by a weak supporting cast, the old American story. This is a full 11 of players who start every week in the best leagues on earth. For the first time, the United States doesn't just have a good player, it has a good team. And that team is about to play a World Cup on home soil, with nearly every advantage is stacked in its favour. Because they are hosting, the United States qualifies automatically. No qualifying landmines, no Trinidad and Tobago. They are already in. Every game is in an American city, in front of an American crowd, with no jet lag, no foreign altitude, no hostile travel. Host nations historically punch far above their weight. Home advantage at a World Cup is real, and it is measurable. Then there's the format. 2026 is the first 48-team World Cup, 12 groups of 4, and the 8 best third-place teams still advance. Translation: the path out of the group has never been softer, and steering all of it is a coach the US could only have dreamed of a decade ago. Mauricio Pochettino, a genuinely elite, trophy-level European manager who has run Tottenham, PSG and Chelsea, now pointing this golden generation at its home tournament. And off the field, American soccer has never been healthier. In 2024, Major League Soccer drew a record 11.4 million fans, second in the entire world, behind only the Premier League, supercharged by Lionel Messi arriving in Miami. The country is finally soccer mad. The home crowd, the best squad they've ever had, the softest format in World Cup history, an elite coach. Every excuse the United States has ever hidden behind is finally gone, except one, and it's the one that matters most. The giants are still the giants. France, Spain, Argentina, Brazil, England. To win a World Cup, you don't beat one of them. You beat several, back-to-back, in knockout games. And in its entire history, the United States has never beaten a true heavyweight in a World Cup knockout. Not once. Home advantage cuts both ways too. Hosting isn't only a privilege, it's a weight. The pressure of a nation that has never won, now expected to deliver on its own soil, has crushed teams before. And 2018 is the ghost in the room. This program, even a good version of it, is capable of a stunning collapse. An early exit at home would be the most humiliating result in American soccer history. The squad is strong, but thin in places, with no proven world-class number 9, the kind of striker who wins tournaments. So let's be honest about what this could change actually means. It does not mean the United States is going to win the World Cup. They are not the favourites. They might not even reach the semi-finals. What it means is this. For the first time in 96 years, every excuse is gone. No qualifying disaster, no talent drain, no soccer doesn't matter here. The best team they have ever built, an elite coach, the softest format in World Cup history, and an entire country roaring behind them. The realistic dream isn't lifting the trophy. It's a deep run, a quarter-final, a semi-final, and finally beating one of the giants on the biggest stage, at home. Do that, and the 96-year story changes forever. But 23 other nations are arriving in America this summer, with stories just as tangled, just as long, and just as unresolved. And most of them have better odds. This whole channel is built to tell them. So stick around. 96 years of waiting, one summer to answer the question. We start finding out on June 12th, whether this is finally the year or whether America loses again, at home. And for the first time in a very long time, it is genuinely too close to call.